I once worked at an organization, and I won't name them in case they ever want to hire me to do anything ever again. Once they did open up a daycare on campus in this office building for people who worked there,
Great.
which sounds great, right? The problem is they did it because having one on site gave them an edge in the new Great Places to Work list that was coming out the next year. About 1% of people who worked on that campus were able to take advantage of the childcare there. The waiting list was a mile long, but there were glass windows out in front. So as you were walking from one building to another, you saw all the kids with their lovely care playing games and drawing pictures. But it made most people just mad because they didn't have, it was basically a lottery that gave you a place in this thing. I mean, at least they didn't just give it to the VPs only and make us watch all of their kids. But that was a thing that was happening. And then the other thing that was happening that was also kind of structural to a certain extent, we had a bunch of categories on everyone's performance assessment every year that we had to kind of, live up to. And one of them was very ill-defined at the time. They did build a better definition later on, but it was simply just called professionalism. And it was a
Mm.
great way for people who had a very set idea of what professionalism looked like and
Not
felt
this
like,
hair.
not that hair, not to mention, locks down to the middle of your back.
Mhm.
That would not have, and it was just, and without saying anything, that would get anybody fired or sued for discrimination, they were able to give certain leg up to people who, who fit
Hmm.
the mold a little bit more
Yeah.
so than others. And of course they could say, and they did, everyone is measured against this professionalism category. And it's like, yeah, but do some people have a genetic advantage of
I
doing well
live
in terms of the
I
professional
spent
category?
a long time working for an organization that had a very hazy professionalism category on the annual assessment. Oh, I know how that game
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And imagine, Eric, thinking about this organization you're talking about that said, oh, childcare is a good way to seem like a good employer without having done anything to prepare to do it the right way. Imagine how that would have gone if that organization had taken a moment to hire you and me to do a needs assessment, to just reach out to the people who worked there and the
Hmm.
folks they were serving to find out really what the need is. How many people have this need? If we did it like this, would this serve everybody, or do we need to
Hmm.
think of other ways to include other families?
Yeah. And is giving
What's in
everyone
place for kids
credit
who have
towards their child
disabilities?
care, is that more profitable than building a facility that can only take care of 20 kids?
Exactly. And then have 100 angry parents
Hmm.
who
Oh,
can't
more than
have
100.
their,
Way more than 100. I mean, it ended up
yeah.
being a culture killer, but they got their
Oh
points
yeah,
on the
sure.
Great Place to Work survey. Yes, we have on-site childcare. There were no other questions. And so it was
So,
built for the
yeah.
survey. It wasn't built for the people. It was not, were they trying to make a great place to work or were they trying to get in the magazine?
Do you want a band-aid or do you want a cure? That's really the
Yeah.
question. That's the question for organizations who who have issues around their culture, their organizational culture, whether that has to do with race, gender,
Hmm.
LGBTQ plus people who are from various religions, whatever the issue is, it all comes down to, do you want a cure or do you want a band-aid?
Yeah.
Because we can come in and build lots of little checklists of here's how to look like you're being inclusive. Job done. You'll get on lots of lists. Or we can come in and help you to actually have a
Hmm.
functioning work culture where you can get the best results out of everybody who's working there because they feel valued and they value you
Yeah.
and the organization in return. Because something else I'm seeing with younger generations, you and I talk about how we are not the young folks anymore. But what I see from the young folks is that they are often going into employment saying, okay, this is an exchange. So let's see what you're offering me, and I will offer you that same level of value, respect, loyalty, fill in the rest of the blanks. It's a different ball game now.
Hmm.
And I hear this from a lot of people our age who are in supervisory positions. Also, there are microaggressions that you and I dealt with in the workplace back in the 90s when we were young people, that these young people would never put up with. And I actually think that's a very good thing. Some people think they're too fragile or they're too whatever. Well, whatever they are that, and you're not going to change it. So
Hmm.
you got to figure out then if you want them in your workplace, how you going to make it work. Because where someone could say to me in my workplace, let's say again back in the 90s or the early 2000s, well, Melanie, the way that you wear your hair, doesn't seem quite as professional as we want. And in my heart, I would be calling them everything but a child of God. But the time that I grew up in and the lack of opportunities that were available to women who looked like me a generation before that told me that I had to learn how to play somebody else's game a little
Hmm.
bit. But we have not raised our children that way. And I'm glad we haven't. I have two Gen Zers myself. We have raised our children to be their authentic selves and that no one should be able to tell you that the way your hair grows out of your own head is inappropriate. No one should be able to tell you that because your body naturally has certain curves, you have to dress it differently than another woman would. We're not telling our kids anymore, you have to hide who you love or who you date because you'll never get promoted or you'll never be accepted in the workplace culture.
Hmm.
The reason I brought up this whole thing earlier about thinking about where the spaces are that we hold things as organizations, companies, nonprofits, et cetera, was I was doing work with a previous client and doing the needs assessment, reaching out to individual members, where someone brought up to me that one space in which an annual event is held for that organization is a very like I guess very traditional hoity-toity restaurant in the DC area where you're required, it says on the door, I think ladies are required to wear dresses, gentlemen are required to wear suits. And this young 20-something non-binary person said to me, well, so what am I supposed to wear? You know, that's really offensive. Or what if there are plenty of people who don't identify as women or men, ladies or
Hmm.
gentlemen, and then plenty of people who are in transition. You have to think about those things.
And plenty of women that I know who are cisgender women who haven't worn a dress in 30 years. I mean, it's just, even,
Yes.
I mean, it kind of gets to, it sounds like, and I appreciate everything that you're saying. We don't want to make carve outs. Let your employees know, hey, this is kind of
Yeah.
a glam kind of place. Feel free to,
Hmm.
dress up. We're
Yeah.
gonna put on the Ritz a little bit tonight. So, wear the thing in your closet that just makes you feel the most fabulous, and we'll see you there.
Yes. I
Say
love
that to
that.
everybody. Like that's just
Yeah.
the easiest thing in the world to do. And I have a lot of friends
Yes.
who would knock the socks off some of those, they'd
Hmm.
look great, but they would not follow
Yeah.
the dress code that was listed on the
Precisely. And we have to, so if you want space, if you want let's say, the expertise of that person in your organization, then you've got to be thinking about how to really include
Mhm.
that person in your organization.
And how
And
much more
also,
fun is it when everyone shows up at the
yes,
party as themselves?
yes,
You know?
yes.